and welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
And hopefully you will see the text in a second. All right. So we are in the midst of the episode where Avraham and his family are in Gerar, which is in the land of the Philistines, and they've encountered Abimelech, the king of the Philistines, and Abraham has told Abimelech that Sarah is his sister, and Abimelech then took Sarah, who apparently was this beautiful, beautiful woman, and then God appears that night. God appears to him in a dream, right? And he tells, go on, V'ata hashev, and now hashev it eshet ha'ish, return this a married woman, ki navihu, because he is a prophet, v'yitpalel ba'adcha v'chyeh, and he will pray on your behalf, and you will live. V'im eincha meshiv, but if you do not return, his wife understood, no, ki mot tamut, that you will certainly die, ata, you, v'chol asher lach, and all that is yours. So, Hashev el eshet ha'ish, return this the wife of the man, right? And why does God need to say eshet ha'ish, right? Just not hashev ota? For al tehei savur, do not hold the opinion, Shema titkana be'enav, that now she has become repugnant in his eyes. In other words, that he wouldn't take her back. Don't consider that for a moment. V'lo yikablena, and that he should not receive her, or yisan acha, or yisna echa, or that he will hate you. Do not think any of these things. V'lo yitpalel alecha, and that he won't pray on your behalf or over you. And there's a parenthetical note here, whether it comes from another Rashi somewhere else, but it's helpful. Amar Abimelech. So Abimelech had said to God, Umi mefarsamo, who is going to let him know, who is going to inform him, Shelo nagati ba, that I didn't touch her. And then Amarle, and going on, that God replied to him, Ki navihu, for he is a prophet. In other words, it's putting in stuff that they feel is elided from the text and puts into context the various statements of this verse, right? And because he's going to know, how's he going to know? Because he is a prophet. Ve'yodea shelo nagata ba, and he knows that you did not touch her. Lefichach, and for this reason, vayitpalel be'adcha, he will pray on your behalf. This is found in the Talmud, in the tractate Baba Kama on page 92. Yes, page 92. Going back here. Vayashkem Avimelech baboker. Avimelech got up early in the morning. Vayikra lechol abadav. He called to all his servants. Vayidaber et kol advarim ha'ele be'oznahem. And he spoke all these words in their ears. In other words, he told them, right, word for word. Vayiru hanashim me'od. And the people were in great fear. Vayikra Avimelech, and Avimelech called Abraham, Vayomer lo, and he said to him, Me asita lanu, what did you do to us? O me chatati lach, and what sin did I commit against you? Ki heveta alai, that you have brought upon me, va'al mamlachti, and upon my kingdom, chata gdola, a great sin. Ma'asim asher lo yesu, things that never were done. Asita imadi, you have done with me. You have caused me. Something like that. So, ma'asim asher lo ye'asu, right? Things that would not be done, would not or haven't been done. Something like that. Maka, in other words, explaining what are these things? A plague asher lo hurgala lavo al bria, that is not normally something that comes on any creature, ba'alanu has come upon us, al yadcha, by means of you. You have caused us these things, these very unusual punishments, plagues. Atzirat kol nikavim, right? That is the closing of all the orifices, shel zera, of semen, v'shel ktanim, and of urine, uri'i, and excrement, ve'oznaim v'chotam, and the ears and the nostrils. All these have been shut up as a result of what you have caused me, because you told me that Sarah was your sister, and I assumed that and took her as a wife, right? Vayomer Abimelech el Avram, and again Abimelech said to Abraham, Mara'ita, what did you see? Ki asita et hadavar hazeh, that you did such a thing. Going on. Vayomer Avraham, and Abraham said, Ki amarti, I was sure, I thought, Rak ein yirat Elohim b'makom hazeh. There simply is no fear of God in this particular place. V'haraguni al dvar ishti, and they will kill me regarding the word or the matter of my wife, concerning my wife. Rak ein yirat Elohim, right? So there seems to be no fear of God, whatever, in this place. Why did he say this? So the logic is this: Achsana'i sheba le'ir, right? If someone who comes to lodge, a lodger comes to a city, al iske achila va'oshtia sholimoto, do they ask him regarding issues of food and drink? Or al iske ishto, or do they ask him regarding his wife? And if we go back to verse 2, where this all starts, we'll see that that's what is. We can actually go back to verse 2 and we can take a look at it. It's back a bit. Here we are, right? Here, this is where Abraham says to Sarah, his wife, you are my sister. So the question is this, right? That's the first thing that Abraham says to says regarding his Sarah. It says Achotihi, she is my sister, and the implication of this is they must have asked him about Sarah, and he had to tell them. That's when he told them. So while it isn't as clear as it's stated later on, that is certainly the implication of what's going on here and as to why this particular Rashi makes sense. So let's go on. Okay, so ishtachahi or achotchahi, right? They okay. They asked him. So what was the question they asked him? And this is in Baba Kama. Ishtachahi, is he your wife? Is she your wife? Excuse me, or achotchahi, or is she your sister? So that, in other words, we're drawing out of what Abraham says, that she is my sister, that he was answering an implied question at that point. Otherwise, out of the blue, why would he be saying such things? So we're putting it into context. V'gam umna, and also, indeed, achoti bat avihi, she is my sister through my father. She's the daughter of my father. Achlo bat imi, but she's not the daughter of my mother. But hili leisha, and so she became my wife. So this, we'll take a look at the Rashi here, how he explains this. As I've mentioned before, I think that Sarah actually was the daughter of Haran, right? Haran was the son of Terach, and so actually, when it says Bat Avi, daughter of my father, she actually was the granddaughter of of Terach, of Abraham's father. So Again, how that happened, I suspect, may well have been through a levirate situation, which is why they mention that Haran died before his father Terach. It says that, of course, explicitly. Let's take a look here.
I'm sorry, to do a what situation?
A levirate. Levirate. In other words, it's the levirate marriage is where a there are two brothers, and the one brother dies childless. He's married, but he has no children with his wife, and his brother comes and marries his widow, the brother's widow, to provide seed for the deceased brother.
Right.
So go ahead.
And that's done all the time.
Well,
That's
it's
pretty
something
much.
mentioned explicitly in Deuteronomy. This is different. In this case, it was Haran's father who took Haran's wife. Okay, and consequently, but we'll see. Rashi explains it a little bit differently, and perhaps more simply. And of course, if we look for simpler explanations, maybe that's what we should go for. But
Go for
regardless.
Occam's razor.
Yes, exactly. I'm a great believer in Occam's razor. Yes. So here we go. Here we go. Achoti. In other words, Abraham is saying, indeed, she is my sister. Bat avihi. She is the daughter of my father. Uvat av, and the daughter of a father. Muteret leven Noach. In other words, a half sister is permitted to a non-Israelite. That is not considered incestuous. It is for in Jewish law, but for non-Israelites, marrying a half sister through the father, but not through the mother, is permissible. Okay, she'ein avot le'omot ovdei eleglim. That's what this abbreviation stands for, because there is no paternal relationship. That's how Svaria, their translation is of this Rashi for well, basically it says the nations that are idolaters. So they do not consider that significant, the paternal relationship. Uchadei le'amet tavarav, and in order to prove his words, Heshivo Cain, he responded to him here. In other words, Abraham was proving that what he said was the truth. At least it was a part truth. Ve'im tomar, and should you say, Rashi's getting a little bit Talmudic here, right? Ve'im tomar, and should you say, v'halo bat achiv haita, but she wasn't the daughter of his father, she was the daughter of his brother, right? She was his niece. B'nei vanim hareheg kebanim. There's a principle that says the sons of sons, in other words, grandsons, are in fact just like sons. They have an equivalent to being sons. So that's how Rashi is explaining that on this particular principle, and not the way I explained it, by saying that when Haran died, Terach, his father, brought his widow and his family into his house. V'harei bito shel Terach. And so indeed she was the daughter. If we consider grandparents are like parents, then she is like the daughter of Terach, at least legally. V'chein hu omer leLot. And so he says in another place, Abraham says to Lot, Ki anashim achim anachnu, for we are brothers. And of course, Lot was his nephew, not his brother. But what we're saying is this word ach, meaning brother. Well, we know in other languages, brothers can be used more loosely. Achlo batimi, but she was not the daughter. She's not the daughter of my mother. Haran me'em acheret haya, right? So he is explaining it totally differently here, and he's saying that Haran came from a different wife of Terach. So that's how he's explaining that. And it's possible that his explanation, that Rashi's explanation, is an easier explanation to accept if we don't want to go with the levirate explanation. So that's why that's how Sarah becomes Abraham's sister and not his, as well as his wife, I would say. Partial truth here. Interesting. Vahi, and it was, this Abram's going on with his explanation. Ka'asher hit'u oti, right? When they may caused me to wander, Elohim, mi beit avi, from my father's house. Va'omar la, I said to her, Zeh chastech asher ta'asi imadi, this is your kindness which you will do with me, or you'll perform for me, this act of kindness. El kol hamakom asher navo shama, when we arrive at any place, Imri li, say about me, Achihu, that he is my brother. Say that. So this does raise some interesting issues to think about, right? Because clearly there's some deception involved, but the idea is that that deception is involved in a case of a life-threatening circumstance. So are we saying, again, circumstances alter cases, that in general we're supposed to never stray from the truth, but sometimes if we have to stray from the whole truth under certain circumstances, that may be justifiable. So, I mean, that's a short answer on this. There may well be much more that could be thought about it, but it is an interesting point and a part of the story. Okay, here we are. Vahi kasher hit'u oti. So it's the point that Rashi's making is hit'u is plural, right? And yet the subject is God. So Rashi starts off with a very interesting statement. He says, Onkelos tirgem mashe tirgem. He's saying Onkelos translated that passage as to what he translated, however he translated it. So we happen to have the Onkelos right here, the Aramaic translation of the Hebrew, right? And this is how Onkelos explains it. Vahava, and it was so, kad ta'u amamaya, right? That when nations strayed, okay, Batar, after, here we are, Ovade Yedehem, the work of their hands, when they strayed after the work of their hands, Yati Kariv Hashem Ledachalti Mi Beit Abba. Me, the Lord drew near to serve him, to worship him, to fear him, from my father, mi beit Abba, from my father's house. For Amaritla, and I said to her, Dain tevutich, this is the kindness, di ta'abdi imi, that you shall do for me, and then going on pretty much with a direct translation of the Hebrew. But that's what Rashi's pointing out to us, is that obviously Onkelos takes a lot of liberty and does not translate this directly, but translates it as sort of that the words in the Hebrew, right? That this word hitu, here he understands the hitu, that meaning to'eh. I think here he's saying perhaps, although it may be spelled differently, but let's just see. Let me look. Yeah, see ta'u is with a tet. Here we are, right? But for whatever the reason is, he's understanding it as if this was spelt with a tet, and he's more Onkelos, that is more concerned about the fact that they, right? So it's like he's putting a comma here. Ka'asher hitu, comma. In other words, when the nations may, mistakenly followed the work of their hands, in other words, practiced idolatry, or I, Elohim mi beit avi, right? So again, he's understanding that God took him from his father's house, etc. So I'm just trying to see if I can parse out how Onkelos is coming up with the translation he's coming up with. So there we are. Now he goes on. V'yesh la'ashev od davar, right? One can also explain this verse in another way. Dibur od davar dibur al ofanov meaning just the way it's stated, right? To set it right. So how he understands it, ani hakadosh baruch hu, that when the Holy One Besed Me took me out mi beit avi from my father's house, liyot mishotet venad, to wander and wander around mi makom lemakom, from one place to another. V'yadati, and I knew she'evor b'makom risha'im, that I'm going to go through a place of wicked people. Va'omar la, and I said to her, Sarah, of course, Zeh chasdech, this is the kindness you will show me, etc., v'gomer, etc. Ka'asher hitu, so as he caused me to wander, they caused me to wander. Lashon rabim. This is a plural verb. Al titma, but don't be shocked, don't be surprised. Ki baharbe makomot, because there are many places, lashon elohut, that when they're speaking in terms of gods, divine, or lashon marut, or if we're talking about power, using a context of power, karui lashon rabim. We use the plural to indicate the power, etc. And he gives examples. Asher halchu Elohim. In other words, whom God wanted, but halchu is plural, right? Went to redeem. Elohim chayim. So again, by the way, the very word Elohim, of course, is plural, but it doesn't mean a plurality of gods. Chayim, living, but again, a plural verb. Elohim kadoshim, holy God. But all the contexts themselves are talking about a singular God. V'chol lashon Elohim lashon rabim. And anytime they talk about Elohim, one can also use the plural, right? The plural of the word. V'chein, right? And likewise we find Vayikach Adonai Yosef, and the master, Joseph's master, but Adonai is plural, and he only had one master, right? Potiphar. Adonai Ha'adonim, right? The lords of the lords. Adonai Haaretz, the rulers of the land, but it actually means the ruler of the land. V'chein ba'alav yimat, and likewise in a case where it's talking about, I believe, the goring ox, and ba'alav, this yud vav here, means his masters, and yet yumat, of course, is singular. V'hu'ad b'va'alav, he is master, but here the way it's actually spelled is plural. His masters were warned, but v'hu'ad is singular. It's only talking about one master. Ve'im tomar, and if you should ask, mahu lashon hitu, right? What is this word hitu? They cause to wander. Kol hagole mimkomo, or gula mimkomo. Anyone who is exiled from his place, ve'eno meyushav, and isn't settled, karui to'eh. That is called, such a person is called a to'eh, right? We understand it as a nomad, something like that. Kamo, as it states later on in Genesis chapter 1, Vatelech vateta, right? This is Hagar in the next chapter, where it's talking about she went and she wandered. And in Psalm 119, Ta'iti kase oved, I wandered around like a lost sheep. And an example, so he's giving examples of this particular verb of ta'ah. In Job 38, Yitu livli ochel, right? They wander around without food. Yatsu v'yitu levakesh ochlam. They go out and they wander around to seek their food, to request food, something like that. Okay. Let's go on. Im Imri Li. Okay, let's see. I think it doesn't mention that it's the next sentence, does it? But yeah, it is. Okay, right. I said to her, this is your etc. Imri Li. Say, literally, Imri Li means say to me. But what it means is a lie. It means about me. Even though the Hebrew says say to me, it really means we need to understand this Li here doesn't mean to me, it means about me. And so now so Rashi's doing quite a bit of work in terms of the grammar and the meaning of the Hebrew itself. V'chein, and likewise, that is, this is Genesis chapter 26. Vayishalu anshe hamakom leishto. Right, this is, I believe, about Isaac and Rebekah, where it says the people of the place asked. Again, this means to his wife, but really it means al ishto. They asked concerning his wife. V'chein, and likewise, another example. This is typical of Rashi's attempting to be rigorous and proving his point. V'chein, and likewise in Exodus chapter 14, v'amar paro livnei Israel, right? And Pharaoh said, but livnei, here's this lamed, to the children of Israel, kamo al bnei Israel. But actually, he wasn't talking to the children of Israel. He was talking about the children of Israel. Last example, Judges chapter 9. Pen yomru li isha harag 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 let's see, harag taho, possibly, I think. I'm not certain how to point this, but it does mean lest they say li to me, but it means again about me. A woman killed him, right? They say about me, a woman killed him. So again, all discussing Hebrew and understanding the Hebrew, and the fact that this context requires a different way of looking at it, a different translation. So I think this is a good place for us to stop this morning, and I'll mark the place here. Any thoughts or questions about what we did today? I'm going to cut off the share. Yes,
I
Bart,
was,
good to see you too. Go ahead. Who was it? Harlan, was it you?
oh yeah, I was thinking about is this king the king of the Philistines? He's the king of the Philistines. Okay,
Yes.
he made a pact with Abraham that they could be friends, and each
Later
would
on.
not hurt the
Later
other.
on. Yes, later on. We'll read
Oh,
about that later on.
oh,
I believe at the end or towards the end of this particular particular parsha. We'll read about that.
but when Abraham said he was his wife was a sister, and Amalek, the king, this king, uh,
Abimelech. Yes.
yes, Melech gave gave him sheep and camels
We're
and
coming to that.
everything. He
Yes.
became very wealthy. Uh, why didn't Abraham give that back to him? Because he did. He lied about it. I don't understand it. Maybe
Well, he okay. I believe, okay, first, Abraham was already wealthy, remember, with the incident from Pharaoh before.
yes.
And we're told that Abraham and Lot were very wealthy. Okay. So
Mhm.
the reason he wouldn't give this back, as Abimelech explains, is that the gifts, right, the gifts were symbolic of the fact that Abimelech had not touched Sarah.
Oh,
That Sarah, it was in some sense a way in which for Abimelech to say that she wasn't his wife. She wasn't, she was had no relationship to him whatsoever. Now, exactly how that works, at one point I think I understood it. Right now, I'm not sure I understand it as well. But I imagine, though, interestingly enough, um, I'm trying to think whether, okay, had Sarah come into Avimelech's house, it's possible that Abraham would have had to give a dowry provide a dowry. So in a sense, maybe we can understand that Abimelech providing these gifts to Abraham, because he actually talks about it as a ksut einayim, meaning an indication that Sarah's reputation was intact.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
All right. So we'll
Yeah.
really deal with it when we actually come to the place. So I'm going to stop the recording.